Before we get started, we need to go to settings and switch from a NAT box over to a bridged adapter. Before we run the script that'll install the Fog server, we have to make sure that we set up a static IP. We want to ping an outside location here to make sure that we have an internet connection. They'll be needed once we install the Fog script. Once we've completed the download, go ahead and extract the file to your desktop. We'll navigate there through the terminal. We'll select number 2 for the Ubuntu release, and then we'll select N for the normal server. I've set up a static IP, and I check here to make sure that it's assigned the right one in Fog. I'm also going to use the Fog server for DHCP server, so I'm going to reroute all of these back to the Fog server. Once you review your settings, make sure everything's correct, and then run the script. Once you get Fog installed, you can set up whatever passwords you like, but for right now, we're going to leave them all blank and get Fog working well before we secure it. There will be 4 separate instances where it asks you to enter a password. You don't press anything in, just press enter and continue on to the next one. If everything works correctly, you should get a setup complete screen. There is a link that goes to the Fog management section. It's run on an Apache 2 server. Just right click it and open the link from the terminal. The default username and password for Fog is Fog, and then the password is password. I'm going to create a new vbox called Fog Client, and this will help me test my Fog server, make sure I've got everything set up correctly. Remember, you'll have to set up bridged adapters to be able to connect the Fog. On a regular machine, the Pixie boot is controlled through the BIOS. On this one, we'll need to use a setting called Network Boot, which we'll check and then move up the boot order list. When you create a new machine, it's going to ask for the image that it wants us to use to load. We're going to cancel through there and just boot right to Fog. Now that we've been able to establish a connection to our Fog server, we're going to do a quick host registration and inventory. This will put our MAC address and our vital information into the Fog server so we don't have to enter it manually. Once it completes through, there'll be a new host in the host section of the Fog server. I went between clips and added an image of an Ubuntu server that we can use to upload for testing purposes. Before we finalize our host, I'm going to create a new image. We'll assign that to the host when we finalize it. For the image type, we're going to use multiple partition image, single disk. It says it's not resizable, but it is. Once you list all hosts, you'll notice that the MAC address of the machine that we created is now in our list. The only thing we'll need to do is change the host image to the fog image we created and select our host OS. In my case, since Ubuntu, I'm going to choose Linux. Under Task Management, we're going to select List All Hosts. We're going to test it by uploading the image that I added to the new Fog client between clips. You can see here that the task has started successfully. If you have some sort of authentication error caused by a mistaken setup, the most common error we'll find is that passwords don't match up. After I run this test, I'll go through and I'll break the system so I can show you how to fix it. That task has been assigned to the Fog client MAC address, which means the first time it tries to start up, the Pixie boot is going to upload whatever image is on the hard drive. If everything's been configured properly on setup, it'll run through like that and finish all tasks. So now I have an image that has those 3 partitions. However, if I install and I have an existing Fog account, or I install and I set passwords that are incorrect, I'll get authentication errors. And now I'll show you what those look like. You can see here that I was unable to connect to the TFTP server, which it uses to move images around. We're going to go to our settings and assign a password to the TFTP server. But first, we must make sure that all passwords are in compliance, they are the same. So I'm going to set my Fog account password through Ubuntu. Then I'm going to set my TFTP server. And then I'm going to set my storage node password. Once all 3 of these are set, I should be okay. In this case, just for the training example, I am using password as all passwords. Since I don't want to scroll down through the list and find the TFTP section, I'm just searching for the word password. Here I'm setting the Pixie boot menu master password. Last but not least, I need to set the storage node password. Once all those are set, it'll let me assign tasks and upload images again.